told me you took a really interesting approach when you started learning about crypto. Like I know myself and a lot of people I've met start off reading, jumping into white papers and that sort of thing. But you said you actually went and checked out the top 100 coins on CoinMarketCap and downloaded the wallets, like bought a little bit, tried
still
them all
doing
out.
that.
So yeah.
Yeah, just one at a time. So I started, I think 5 years ago, just with Bitcoin, Coinbase, but right away I got it out off of Coinbase and onto a paper wallet and learned how to kind of import, export the value. And then when Ethereum came out, like as soon as it hit Coinbase, I bought like just $50 worth of Ethereum, which at the time was like 10 Ether, which was a lot. Now it's not as much anymore. But I felt very rich in 2017 with everybody else. One of my favorite coins was Ripple. I was using GateHub, and GateHub is kind of a different exchange. It lets you create a private key right on the exchange, and then you can transfer your value onto the private key, and then you can like print out a paper wallet and delete that off the exchange, and that's a way to withdraw. Okay. I haven't seen any other exchange since like that. So I explored with those bigger coins, and then I just kind of worked my way down the list. Last night I was working with Komodo. Might have been the night before, actually. Last night was that Halloween? Halloween was this week. No, I guess it was the night, a couple nights ago.
The night before last.
So, this week I was working with Komodo and the Komodo wallet, which is really interesting. When you log in, you get your seed, which you can record. I made my paper wallet out of it. And you instantly can get a receive address and send your Komodo off the exchange and onto basically your seed or paper wallet. But then they have this whole other option where it syncs the whole blockchain and enables all these features for security, and has like built-in mixing and just crazy amount of features, which I haven't got into all of them yet, but that's what I like to do. I love to just go down the list. I've tried, I think, over 40 coins now off the exchange on wallets.
Yeah. So do you use these at all for anything, or you mostly just play around, see what the features are like?
As an example, I don't use them a lot. Like I don't have some business on the other side of the world that I'm sending, some security coin to. Yeah. I don't have that kind of business where I need security coins. Mostly, I just want to learn them so I can train people about them. I've hosted about 12 meetups, and I've taught over 10 classes for Blockchain Training Alliance. They fly me I went to Philippines, I went to Sri Lanka, and 3 cities in the US, and then there's a lot of classes from home that I do for them. So the main purpose, I guess, is just to learn it myself and be able to teach it. But as an example of like some personal use, I was on a message board about Nano coin.
Yeah.
And Nano is like number 35 or something. It's way down the list. But some store had posted that, we accept Nano. So I'm like, let's see if you accept Nano. So I went there and I found their cheapest product, which was like a sticker. And sure enough, I was able, on my phone, I have like 40 different coins. Just most of them are under $10, under $5 value. It's just like to try it out. I know I could lose my phone, and or it could get stolen or something, but I had it ready, and so I was able to pay for the sticker, and a couple days later it showed up, and I'm like, whoa, I just spent the number 30 coin that nobody's even heard of to get, a real product from the other side of the world. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
What service did you go through, like Open Bazaar or Marketplace, or was this just
This was their personal website.
Okay.
So the company,
awesome.
I think it was called Panda. They make outdoor products. They make ski poles, actually, Panda poles. And I had never heard of them. I just saw their ad, and they're like, we accept Nano. And when I went there, they actually accepted about 40 different cryptocurrencies, a lot of Ether tokens, but your Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and all those. And Nano was on the list, so I just picked Nano and sent it through.
Mm-hmm. So with all those, having tried out all these different wallets, Are there any like specific features or anything like that you find particularly useful?
For me, I'm kind of a geek. I would consider myself different than the general public. Like, for me, the most important feature is getting that seed onto a paper wallet.
Okay.
So if I lose my phone, I know where my paper wallets are, and I could just buy a new phone, and I probably wouldn't have the time to put 40 coins back in my phone, but it doesn't matter. The private keys are on paper, and so I could put them onto a PC, I can put them onto a new phone, I could put them on 3 phones if I wanted. I think that's like the most important feature of any coin, just the fact that I own the seed, and it's not, even if that app goes out of business, being able to access my funds, I think is very important.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good example for the people that you're educating, I imagine, as well. Like, I know personally, I admit there are definitely times that I've been lazy about getting tokens off of exchanges and things like that. So how has this experience informed the way that you educate people about blockchain?
You know, my personal interests are different than a lot of what I teach. So at Blockchain Training Alliance, they have specific courses. They have, like for instance, a slide deck with 250 slides, and you basically walk the students through all of the course objectives, and at the end they pass the exam. So when I introduce myself at the beginning and introduce the course to them, I tell them that, you know, we're definitely going to do this. We're going to go through the course so you can pass the exam. But if there's breaks, or we get time at the end, or if we want to try something different, usually I'll have them use an Ethereum phone wallet. That seems to be the most approachable wallet. But I do try to share some of my experiences, like using MetaMask, and that's something in our courses as well. But I won't teach them some obscure coin. It's funny, the first coin that I ever taught was Ethereum Classic, and it was at the time when Ethereum fees were too high. They were like 25 cents, which I considered too high for teaching with, because you want to send the coin like 5 times in class and practice it. And so Ethereum Classic at the time was like less than a penny fee. I think it still is. So yeah, I've used kind of smaller coins for teaching if there's a good purpose for using it, but I don't typically, like if it's beyond number 100, well, for teaching, if it's beyond like number 10, I don't even want to teach it.
Yeah.
But personally, I own like 250 different coins. I go way deep past number 300.
Find out where the weirdos are.
Mostly it's just
like
cheap.
seeing what all the ones are.
So when I buy coins, I buy a ratio of the coins. If you were to own 1 out of every 10 million Bitcoins, since Bitcoin market cap is, I believe, $100 billion, so if you owned 1 out of 10 million of them, you would have $10,000 of Bitcoin. And if you just stick to that ratio all the way down, the tiny coins are like $1 for the same ratio. Like what would be $10,000 of Bitcoin is $1 of shitcoin, you know, if I can say that.
No problem.
So you mentioned reading a white paper earlier. Usually I look at the fundamentals first. I don't read white papers, websites. All that stuff can be just copied, and you know, I look at the fundamentals. And so I'm looking at market cap, volume, what exchanges are carried. The exchanges are a big one. But when I find a small coin, if it's on a good exchange, like I would consider Binance a great exchange, and my plan, my 1 out of every 10 million coins comes out to $1, well, I won't buy $1 because just the withdrawal fee is like $3. So I might buy $5 of that coin. And now I own 5 times more of the ratio on that coin than I do of Bitcoin.
Interesting.
So that's how I do it. I don't just throw like $1,000 on some garbage coin.
Just whatever. Okay.
But then if it goes up in value, and if I ever get, like right now I'm at Komodo, which is probably number 75. So if I ever get down there, past 100, past 200, I'll have already owned that coin for years. Like I've owned Komodo for a year and a half, and I'm just now trying it out off the exchange.
That's cool. So there's a little, yeah, and by the, so far you have this impressive index of tokens that, I mean, who knows, one of them pops or something. It's interesting to hear that you do have a little bit of financial strategy in addition to just trying everything out.
Yeah, it's definitely not my personal strategy. Yeah. The S&P 500 is probably one of the biggest mutual funds. So if you look at what are the billionaires investing in, or what are retirement funds investing in, they're not just like, right now pot stocks are all the rage.
Yeah.
So they're not, you wouldn't see Warren Buffett going to pot stocks, or even Bitcoins for that matter. But they feel safe on the high market cap stocks, and then the S&P 500 basically takes 500 of the highest stocks, and then you index across them. So for Apple, let's say you put $10,000 in the S&P 500, you would own about $3,000 of Apple, but that number 500 one you'd own about $10 of, because it's less in market cap.
Okay.
And that's my strategy with the coins.
Okay, makes sense. Man, that's really interesting. So when you're with your work educating people, what sort of demand do you see in terms of education for blockchain? Like, what types of applications or languages, or what do you actually teach?
Okay, so there's what the general public is interested in. Yeah. And they basically they're not going to pay teachers. They're going to learn from YouTube, learn from, podcasts, whatever. So paid teaching is all going to come from business, generally. Business, governments, places like banks, Fortune 500 companies. Those are the ones with the money, not small businesses, but large business. So in order to make a living at teaching, you generally have to cater to that audience. And the biggest thing that they're interested in is business blockchains like Hyperledger. So at Blockchain Training Alliance, we have a Hyperledger course that's 3 days. It has labs. We walk people through what the product is, get them hands-on experience. But personally, like I had an opportunity at the University of Washington this last Monday night. I made up a course with just maybe 15 or so slides and walked them through an overview of Hyperledger, what it is, what are some of the gotchas, and they loved it. It was actually one of the most engaging classes I've ever had. Yeah. I probably got questions from 6 or 7 of the students, and there was only maybe 15 in the room, so it's like half the room asked questions, which was great. And there's another company, forget which one it is now. It's the Seattle Hyperledger meetup. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you might probably went to that meetup before. I might have met you at one of those meetups.
But shout out to Rich.
Yeah, so Rich, he and I are working on scheduling another Hyperledger session that's just like a 2-hour session or less, maybe hour and a half. And we're going to be installing Hyperledger just in a lab environment. So I'll just stand up there with a blank Mac and I'll install it. I'll download it, install it, walk everybody through it. And if people want to follow along with their own Mac or Linux or whatever, they can do that. So those are kind of the classes that I would do locally. So far I haven't found a market where, like a paying market for local classes. It's usually just the big, if you want to get paid, you have to teach like banks basically. Yeah.
Are these companies bringing you in to teach their developers how to develop for the blockchain, or where are they going with it?
So one of the banks was in the Philippines, and they set out to hire 100 college grads. They had about 17 college grads in the room. taking the course, the Hyperledger course, and then they had maybe 10 of their own kind of seasoned developers in there as well. And so I was out there alone actually, but as a group we went through the Hyperledger material from Blockchain Training Alliance and taught them, how to install it, how to use it, a lot of hands-on labs and lectures on the features. Where I would expect they'd go with it is do some proof of concepts, start thinking through some use cases, which use cases are really tough.
Yeah, that's a whole other animal, right?
Yeah, that kind of segues into this Gartner. It was a paper about the hype cycle of blockchain use cases.
Yep.
And that was one of my most interesting ones. All the use cases that we talk about, and you see them, if you go on LinkedIn, you see these one company after another. Oh, we're doing a food blockchain, and we're doing a supply chain and a banking blockchain. So the hype is like as if it's here and now, and as if you owned a bank, you could use the blockchain, or you could use it in a supply chain if you own a grocery store. But it's, in the fine print of the Gartner thing, they're saying like 5 to 10 years away for these use cases. I definitely don't think people should just wait 5 or 10 years. You can do that with the internet. So when the internet came out in 1990, you could say, well, these use cases aren't believable, and let's just wait 15 years and see what happens. The people that are trying and using the internet back then and using it have all that experience, and so when the real products come out, they're able to use them right away rather than just waiting. So I see the blockchain companies that have the ability or the money or the interest. I definitely would recommend that they try to use the blockchain, try to learn it, try to follow these use cases, run into the dead ends, and then I expect somebody, whether it's Microsoft or Google or some company we've never heard of, they're going to come out with a product that's just going to blow away today's blockchain and make it more approachable, easier, and I think it's just going to be like a dam breaking, but it may not be with what we're teaching today or with today's software. And but that doesn't mean just wait until the dam breaks, because you don't know.
Yeah, you got to figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That brings up an interesting issue as well. I heard a lot of controversy recently over the use of private blockchains in general. A lot of people seem to feel that using a private blockchain or putting permissions on a blockchain undermines the goal of decentralization. Personally, I see it sort of as a way to experiment in a sandbox environment, but it caused a lot of controversy. People feel like it's a threat. Where do you come down on that issue?
There's a lot of companies that just are not going to use public blockchains. They don't want their information out there. They can't think of a use case. I could probably think of some. I love public blockchains, but I understand why a lot of companies don't want that. And companies have been protecting data for 20 plus years. I mean, even back in the mainframe days in the 70s, it's isolated behind their firewalls. They have their users going on the internet and browsing, but in the meantime, nobody can get at their databases. And we definitely hear hacks, every month or every year. But for the most part, companies are totally able to secure their environment. And I think this argument about public blockchains are secure and private are not secure, and how can you secure a private blockchain, that's already been answered. Like people that use Oracle or SQL are securing it. So it's a question, to me, it's not like, is it secure or not secure, or this is more secure than that. It's like, is it secure enough? And if databases are secure enough before the blockchain, then adding the blockchain in a private way behind the firewall and sharing rights with other businesses or other corporations using the blockchain, I think is going to be secure enough. Maybe it doesn't meet the criteria of like some mathematician or whatever that says the public blockchain is way more secure. I think it's going to be a combination, and really it's where is the money coming from? To me, it's not like what is the best technology, it's what is the most funded technology. Mm-hmm. As a hobbyist, as a personal interest, I love the public blockchains, and that's like where a lot of my heart is, and I want to see them succeed, and I love using them. I would also have a heart for the private blockchains, except for I have no access other than teaching them. So yeah, I get it that people feel public is more secure and public is like the real blockchain, but to say that private blockchains are not usable or not secure, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Gotcha. Cool. All right, so let's end this thing on a bit of an optimistic note. If there's anything that blockchain or technology, and if there's one problem that blockchain or technology in general could solve, what would it be? For you? Yeah, I feel like a little deja vu on this one.
So for me, blockchain, public blockchains, actually public or private, it's a community. I see a lot of people trying to just like print money and use this technology. They're like, oh, if I can get my hands on a way to print tokens, then I can be rich. And that, we see all these failed ICOs. In general, that doesn't work. The most successful blockchains that I've seen are building these huge communities. Like there's a huge Bitcoin community, huge Ethereum community, and when there's better technology, like I really like the EOS technology, and but the community doesn't hold a candle to EOS's community. And so what I'd really like to see is more, smaller communities being able to use blockchain products, just like a lot of people can use Excel today. Mm-hmm. And if you kind of run out of steam with Excel, you can upgrade to SQL, some flavor of SQL. You can run your own web server, or you can buy a web server service. And those products really enable the communities to kind of share data. But that data, whether it's Excel or database or a website, it's all centralized. So one person owns that. And you can share the password around, or you can make multiple accounts, but you still, like, if one person quits paying the bill, it goes away. So I'd love to see the blockchain usable enough so that those communities can share writing the data. Like one example would be Major League Baseball. If you have, I don't know how many teams there are, I'm not a big baseball fan, but say there's 40 teams, they could, over half of those teams, if they wanted, they could run a full node. And basically, whenever they write into the database or another team writes into the database for whatever purpose, and that would be unique to their community, they would know that data is securely there and nobody else has the key to it. Basically, as a new team joins, they get all the data. As a team drops off, they don't have to say, oh, let's transition my password. It's just like a community that will live on forever, or as long as that community lives on. Hopefully baseball will live on for longer than me.
Cool. That's a great, all right, yeah, I can get down with that. That's a great message. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah,
thanks again for joining us. We'll do this again.
All right, appreciate it.
All right.